Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely flip the script on how you think about your skin. We're not going to sit here and memorize complicated product labels, right? Instead, we're building a solid, first principles understanding of how your skin actually behaves. We'll explore exactly how your local climate and your ethnic background interact with your skin barrier.
Let's kick things off with a bit of a puzzle. Why is it that you and a friend could use the exact same moisturizer or live in the exact same city but get wildly different results? Why does a cleanser feel super soothing to one person but leaves another person stinging in red? Well, the answer isn't some huge mystery, and it definitely isn't random.
So let's dive right into Section 1, the Living Boundary Interface.
To figure this out, we really need to stop looking at our skin like it's just this static canvas that needs fixing. We have to start viewing it as a dynamic living boundary system. Your skin doesn't just sit there passively reacting to whatever cream you slather on it. It's actually constantly doing this quiet, heavy lifting, negotiating between the biology you were born with, which is your internal design, and the environment you live in, which is that external pressure. And honestly, once you see your skin as this active negotiator, everything else just starts to click.
The barrier basically has two main jobs. First up, it's keeping water locked in, sort of like a covered clay pot that stops things from evaporating. And second, it's keeping irritants out. It acts just like a filtered gate that stops dust, chemicals, and microbes from getting inside.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, inside the skin barrier. Let's actually zoom in on how this works.
A really common mistake is thinking of a healthy barrier like a solid stone wall. But it's really all about balance. It's not supposed to be perfectly sealed shut. If your skin was perfectly sealed, it literally couldn't function. We actually need to think of it more like a kitchen sieve. It has to stay selectively permeable, meaning it's flexible enough to let you sweat and shed dead skin cells while still preventing excessive water loss.
A great way to picture this physical structure is like bricks and mortar. The skin cells themselves, those are your bricks. They provide the actual structure. And the lipid layer, that oily material filling the spaces between them, well, that's your mortar. So if that oily mortar gets weak, gaps start to form. And when that happens, water escapes right out, and irritants slip right on in.
And this brings us to a super crucial point. Dryness isn't just about a lack of moisture sitting on the surface of your face. Surface moisture is actually pretty brief. Real dryness is a massive, critical clue that your barrier is failing to retain water internally. It's exactly like a leaky container. If water is escaping way too quickly, your internal retention system is compromised.
But wait, it does more than just block things. Your barrier actually acts like a built-in house alarm, constantly communicating directly with your immune system. Whenever that wall gets breached by an irritant, boom, the alarm sounds. Your body instantly interprets that breach as a threat, and that's exactly what triggers the inflammation, the redness, the itchiness, or that stinging feeling.
Now that we've got the internal mechanics down, let's look at Section 3, the climate background load. Because depending on where you live, the climate completely changes the constant background pressure on your barrier. If you're in a dry climate, the air aggressively pulls water out of you, which leaves your skin feeling tight, flaky, and highly sensitive. But on the flip side, a humid climate isn't some perfectly safe haven either. It constantly bombards your skin with sweat buildup, trapped heat, and physical friction. So different climates don't just simply make you dry or oily, they completely change what your barrier is forced to defend against every single day.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, ethnicity and starting settings.
Okay, so when we talk about ethnic backgrounds, don't think of it as just one single biological switch. Think of it more like different camera settings. You could have two cameras photographing the exact same scene, but if one is set to high contrast and the other to low contrast, you're going to get totally different visual results. Your baseline biology provides the starting settings that your skin barrier is working with.
So different backgrounds come preloaded with different default settings. We're talking about tendencies for oil production, exactly how water is lost through the epidermis, and crucially, how easily inflammation actually shows up on the surface of your skin. It is the exact same basic biological system, it's just calibrated a little differently.
And I really want to emphasize this point because it's absolutely crucial. Pigment is not just about color. Yes, having higher pigmentation offers this wonderful natural protection against visible UV sun damage, but highly pigmented skin is still highly vulnerable to unseen barrier problems like deep dryness, irritation, and uneven inflammation.
In fact, if you're only looking for that typical red flush to tell you your barrier is breached, you are going to completely miss the alarm going off in deeper skin tones. When deeper skin tones are stressed, it often speaks a completely different visual language, showing up as darkening after an irritation,
uneven tone, or even this prolonged roughness, rather than just an obvious red patch.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together in Section 5, seeing the whole system.
Because here's the thing. Climate and ethnicity don't just sit side by side in a vacuum. They actively interact with each other. Your skin's actual response on any given day is the sum of your baseline traits plus the environmental load pressing down on it, plus your daily habits. And honestly, this is exactly why a one-size-fits-all approach to skincare almost always ends up disappointing us.
Let's look at a real-world example. Say you have two different people who both tell you they have quote-unquote sensitive skin. Well, person A might be an outdoor worker in a super humid climate whose barrier is literally being torn down by constant sweat and friction, but person B is an indoor worker who just has an ethnic trait that causes dark pigment marks from the mildest indoor irritation. They both get slapped with the label sensitive, but there are completely different systemic mechanisms at play here.
So when you really break it down, we have to separate the stable biology from the variable outcomes. The core biology, which is that deep need for a working barrier, protection, and repair, that stays exactly the same for all of us. But what actually changes is the amount of water loss, the ease of irritation, and how that inflammation visually shows up on your face based on the very real pressures of your climate and their ethnicity.
So, to wrap this explainer up, the next time your skin feels tight, dry, or angry, don't just guess and grab a random product. Instead, I want you to step back, diagnose the underlying structure, and ask yourself this one incredibly powerful question. What is my barrier being asked to do today? Once you figure that out, the mystery entirely disappears and true understanding begins. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer.